Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Jason here. Jason, you've been, pretty early on in major trends with e-commerce and with fab.com, the flash sale aspects there. You really took advantage of what could even be possible with e-commerce and showed the world the extent of what you can do with a business there. You built it to $1 billion valuation, kind of did something similar in a different area. After that, you've been on the board of an incredibly important company in photography with Unsplash. Now you've got something innovative in the blockchain space with Airstack, and you've got a currency that you built out. You're building on the base blockchain, which a lot of people are really trying to take advantage of now. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Let's jump in. Let's do it.
Awesome. So going back to the beginning, how did your interest in the world of like entrepreneurship, business leadership, how did this passion to build innovative tech companies begin?
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I can tell you I've kind of been an entrepreneur for a very, very long time. I dropped out of college when I was 19 years old, worked for Bill Clinton's campaign for president. And it was kind of like my first startup, right? There was like 30 people working for me at the time. And I had like this rare opportunity. I was happened to be right place at the right time when the governor's wife was coming to Atlanta, Georgia, when I was in college down there. And I ended up driving her around for a day. And they called me afterwards and they said, "Hey, do you want a job?" And they said, I said, "Yeah, of course." And they said, "Well, you gotta be full time and you gotta go to New Hampshire." And I was like, "All right, let's go." Dropped out of college, and I think that's kind of a good like early example of like the entrepreneur kind of startup, just go do it, right, and figure out the rest later. I did finish college, by the way, and then I went and worked at the White House actually in my 20s, and it was actually right there. I was there when like the internet was born. I mean, literally, I was one of the first people to use a web browser in the White House and like to show people like how we had like built the White House webpage, and like it was just all happening right in front of us. And I spent 6 years at the White House, and something weird happened one day. We all found out that the president had an affair with an intern, and this is all true story. Like I went through all this and said, "Okay, time to go. Let's go do something else now." And I mean, it was like I'm giving the short version of it, but it was like, okay, like done this 6 years, maybe it's time to kind of grow up and like do the next thing in my career. And I was just enamored with tech, and so I went out to Stanford Business School, and from there I've just been in tech ever since. I dropped out of business school to join a startup during the first .com craze, and learned a lot from that. And then I've started several companies since then. And I'll say like I've had this one recurring theme throughout like my entire kind of founder career. And I don't think I realized it at the time, but I've realized it since, right? And that I've constantly been working on how we kind of make things more fair, level the playing field for creators, designers, builders. It's just like this recurring theme over and over again. And what I mean by that is, so if the first company that I created, Social Medium, was all about how do you get the news curated by your network. And it was like, rather than relying on the big media companies to tell you what to read every day, what if you could just discover what to read every day based on what your friends are reading? And like that's like, so it's like kind of demystifying, decentralizing kind of media and content. And that company grew really big, really fast. We were like 6 million users during the 2008 Obama election cycle. We were like riding on like politics and other waves at the time, and sold that company. And then I started a company called fab.com shortly thereafter, as you mentioned, which was basically democratizing the relationship between product designers and consumers. And so like what we did is product designers, especially of like kind of furniture, household goods, t-shirts, whatever it might be, it used to be that it had to go find a retailer to sell through. And what Fab did for the first time was essentially we discovered designers and put them directly in front of the potential consumer. And so that was that example. And then after Fab, we did a company called hem.com. And hem was about, basically we took a similar model and we said, but also we'll help them with the manufacturing and the supply chain and everything, especially for furniture. And then after that, I started a company called Peepo, which was really a precursor to what we're working on now. Peepo was in 2016. We decided that the opportunity we really wanted to focus on for the next several years was how do we create a new type of social network economy where creators and their fans could earn together without having to give the bulk of their profits and their earnings to the big platforms. We said like it was just a travesty that Apple and Google are taking 30% cuts, and Facebook and Google are taking like taxes on like advertising, and how do we kind of disintermediate and kind of disrupt that? And that's what we started working on in 2016 with Peepo. We built a protocol actually on the Ethereum blockchain called OpenST to try to to get some of this going. We actually launched the first kind of like crypto TikTok experiment in 2019. We won a design award for that. And yeah, and then Airstack, we launched Airstack more recently in 2022. I think it was 2022. Yeah, and Airstack's about a little more than 2 years old. And what Airstack is doing is we've created a protocol called Moxy. Moxy is a protocol on the base blockchain, as you mentioned. It works mostly with the Farcaster ecosystem. Farcaster is the leading decentralized social network where everyone on chain is hanging out, hundreds of thousands of people. It's super busy. It's like the place to be if you're doing anything on chain. And Moxy is the economy of Farcaster. We created something essentially that enables anyone to take any facet of the Farcaster experience and to use Moxy. And the derivative of Moxy is what we call fan tokens. You can buy a fan token of any person or any community. And when you buy a fan token, you become a member owner and participate in their success and get access to special features. And so it's like only Farcaster fans, but like only fans, but like without all the other stuff, but like on steroids. Like it's like special access to features for their fans, and the fans also participate in their earnings, which is a really cool thing as well. And so that's what we're doing, and it's going gangbusters. I mean, it's just like phenomenal how fast it's growing and how well it's been received.
So just going back to like the experience being in the White House, you were launching a lot of different initiatives. What did you learn about how to actually execute a new type of initiative, something different, and bring it to life that now you've taken into the world of business?
Yeah, I learned a lot. I grew up very, very quickly by working at the White House. I've started several companies as I just went through, and I've never worked harder in my life than I worked at the White House. So it's like, that was for a pretty long time ago at this point. It was over 20 years ago. And I still have, we look back and say, that was the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Even after founding like 6 companies now. So it's like, that was a very formative experience. I also was in a situation where, for whatever reason, people trusted me, they believed in me, they thought I was smart. And I was usually in the room with people who were twice my age. And I was typically be like one of the only a couple people that were that young. And I was given a lot of responsibility. And, I wrote speeches for the president, I had briefing papers. The day there was, I don't know if you heard the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, most of the staff was on vacation that day. It was it was a US holiday, and I was the only one around. And so they grabbed me and said, okay, figure out what happened here, get on Air Force One with the president, brief him and Hillary, and kind of, just do this whole thing. And it's like being thrust into crazy situations. And I'd say like a lot of that I kind of brought with me to business, and that, I think the White House days taught me that, you can, I think fake until you make it is the wrong way to put it. It's like you can accomplish anything if you really think you can, and like you kind of gather smart people and kind of like really kind of put some smarts to it, that like there's no bounds to what you can accomplish. And just have like unbridled optimism that you are going to figure it out, even if like the first time, second time, third time doesn't work. I think also to not have like fear about what people might think. I think actually I have very little fear of failure. I have more fear of like, how do we make sure we're successful? And then lastly, I'll say a very different lesson. There was one time in the White House, I worked for a guy named Erskine Bowles, who was the chief of staff of the White House. He was a Southern gentleman. And Erskine had this drawl to him, and I was the youngest person by far in the chief of staff's office, and everything came through me. Literally everything that anyone wanted Erskine to look at came through me. And maybe at one point it went to my head a little bit. Like maybe it was like I was gatekeeping a little too much, and like the deputy treasury secretary is trying to get through, and I didn't like the way they wrote the briefing paper or like something else. And I was like, go back and work on this a little more. And Erskine took me aside one day, and I always remember this the rest of my life. He said to me, Jason, I just want you to know, people will do things for you because they like you, not just because they respect you. And I was like, what? He goes, because you got to find a way to get people to like you. There's no doubt that everyone respects you. They think you're smart, you're capable, but they don't like you. And so you got to find a way to get them to like you. And I think since then, it's really been something that I really, really kind of was like stuck in me and kind of stood with me, that like, it is an important part of your job as a founder, as an entrepreneur, to make people not just want to, basically not just to buy your product or use your product, but to really like working with you and appreciate you and cultivate the community cultivate. And I think with Web3 on chain, especially as communities become more decentralized and become like more like everyone's in the community, this has taken on even more and more importance. And I always say like cultivating the community is a very, very important part of the job. And it used to be think before, well, I build a product and like what the community does is up to them. The community is half the job. And then something, and so and it kind of goes back to that lesson though. You can't fake the community. You can't fake the kind of people liking you. You got to get people on board with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson, and that you're definitely right about that. So you touched on a little bit before when you're going through the different companies you've done, like fab.com and what was different about it and how you connected these designers and made them get to the forefront in front of these customers much quicker. How specifically did like this idea like start to develop? Like what led you to want to build fab.com?
Yeah. So Fab's story was so I had sold social media and I had gone to this company called Zing, which was like the LinkedIn of Europe, and was their chief product officer there for a year. I was living in Hamburg, Germany. I was the only person in the room who didn't speak German. I was like going to board meetings and like, running their product and trying to modernize it. And I was bored out of my mind, I'll tell you. I was just like, I can't do this. I can't work for someone else. I got to go back to start another company. And I, at the same time, was starting to really kind of come out of the closet as a professional gay man. And I was like, you know what? I think what I do is I want to start a startup around kind of things to do, places to go for gay men. That was the idea, right? And it was kind of like Facebook meets Foursquare meets Groupon, et cetera, for gay men. That was the idea. It was called Fabulous, literally it was, right? And we did this. This is a true story. Like it's crazy, right? We did this for a year, and we were like the constant iterating, trying to iterate to a business model. We had lots of users. We had like hundreds of thousands of people who were using the product, but we just weren't happy. And I'll tell you what happened at the time also was users we built some be able to chat other users. And it was clear to us that users wanted to use the app for hookups, and we didn't want to be a hookup app. And it was right at that time that an app called Grindr was launching. And we saw what they were doing. Like, you know what? That's just like, you have to love the business that you're running. And we didn't want to run that business. We didn't love that idea. And so we started trying lots of things. And then my co-founder, Bradford, was not a tech guy at all, but like a really lovely kind of curator of like design and aesthetics and products. And he happened to also be like one of the most famous gay bloggers at the time. But like his day job was he was like the top salesperson for Design Within Reach, and he knew people like throughout that industry. And one day, like I said, hey, Bradford, what if we were to try doing like gay Groupon? And we were to like pick out a product every day and see if people like it. And he's like, oh, I know products. Sure, let's do it. So Bradford started curating. We called it the big gay deal of the day, right? Literally, Bradford was curating the big gay deal of the day. And we started sending these emails to people about here's the big gay deal of the day. And the funny thing, so first of all, the products we were selling had nothing gay to them, right? It was like a chair, a pillow, right? A t-shirt. And this little like gay social network, we turned around and we looked at the people buying it, was suddenly their names were like, it was all gay men before. It was like Sarah and Susie and Beth. And like, we kind of started saying, okay, these are not the users we had before. We saw that we were making real money selling these products, and there was all new users. Like, it was like, some of them were from the previous, but like a lot of people were like, just came in because they found out like, okay, we were really good at cultivating deals and curating product and getting in front of people. And so that's the business. That's what we did, right? And we literally said, okay, well, this is something that like just fits right into this passion place of like, could we disrupt the market? Could we enable designers to go directly to consumers? We interviewed hundreds of designers and said, like, what are your pain points? What you struggling the most with? And they're like, well, we have to build enough supply in order to sell to these guys who then take 40% margins and blah, blah, blah. And like, and we're like, okay, well, what if we just flipped the model on its head and went direct? And yeah, that was Fab. It was every day it was sending an email to people and telling them, here's some great products.
You took it to $1 billion valuation, was able to raise like $300 million for it. You really were able to scale it.
Look, at one point we were the fastest growing company like on the planet, like at that stage. Like, it was like really crazy to think about. Like Fab went from 0 to 115 million in sales in our first year from a cold start. Like, literally from like, okay, let's turn this on and see what happens. Like, we sold, I think it was like $20 million in the first 18 days. Like, it was insane, right? Wow. And we were like, okay, like people love what we're doing. Look, since then, that was a long time ago, right? So we went from a 40 million valuation so we launched Fab with the sales at 20 million in the first few days. We raised money at like a 40 million valuation then, and then like it was a 200 million valuation, and then 500 million valuation, and a $1 billion valuation. Some of the early investors sold on the way up, but the new investors, we all got crushed. And when I say we got crushed, and we've had a long time to think about this since, because it was 2014 was the end of Fab. Amazon crushed us. I mean, really. And if you look back now and look at how many businesses that have had the same thing happen to them, I'd say we were like one of the first. So like we were like poster child for like, rocket growth and kind of, could they sustain the growth? And, we were also like, people loved what we were doing. So we had like a really enthusiastic community. And so it really made people a lot sad when Fab went away also. But like the telling statistic that we kind of looked at a few years later was in the first year and a half of Fab, it took an average of 45 days from the time we curated a product by the time Amazon would have it in their warehouse and available with kind of free fast shipping and free returns. And by year 2.5, so a year later from that, like so from 1.5 to 2.5, it was 48 hours on average, right? And so literally we were essentially curating for Amazon. We would pick a product, Amazon would go talk to the designer, get into their warehouse, and then just sell it, right? And so and at that point it was really tough. Like it was, we went through layoffs, we tried to right size the business, we tried to figure out how to go more towards private label so that we wouldn't have, like Amazon couldn't compete with us. So like we were selling products that they couldn't have. And that eventually became the business. We spun out a company called Hem out of Fab. And Hem was a private label, straight from designers to your home furniture business. That, by the way, we sold in 2016 to a company called Vitra. Vitra is $1 billion, long-time, 100-year-old plus family-owned business. And Hem has supplied much of the furniture to WeWork over the years and is still thriving today. So very, very proud we created with Hem.
Would you say that it was a good thing in the end that you kind of had to pivot towards Hem?
I mean, I'd say I wish we had done it sooner. And I wish our investors hadn't lost as much money on, what the phase in between. And, but yeah, like Hem, I tell founders this all the time, when you're starting a company, there's a whole bunch of things you got to optimize for. And then some things you don't know whether you're going to be able to optimize for it or not, because it's just you're going to learn as you go. And what I mean by it is like, you need to have like right kind of like product founder fit, right? Is this the right product for you as this founder to be building? And then you need to also be having a problem that needs to be solved and a problem that needs to be solved right now. And a lot of founders, when they get up, is like, okay, we got the perfect product founder fit. I am made to build this product. And then they have like, okay, and the world needs this product. I've kind of validated it needs it, but it's just not the right time. And that's what happens a lot. So like Hem, for instance, was a really good model that like, it's like, but just like the timing to get right, And Fab is a different story. I think it's like Fab as just like curating designers and being a kind of a marketplace versus like Amazon is going to catch up to that at some point. And, it's interesting when you think back to like some of the early investors who put in my ear all the time, the ones who said no to us when it turns us down, I said, yeah, I don't think you're able to compete with Amazon over time. We're like, no, look at what we're crushing it. Like we're doing so awesome. And like, and they're always the naysayers. You sometimes listen to the naysayers more. They're like, I don't know about this model. And they shift this a little bit more. Amazon at some point will catch up to this. And yeah, but no regrets, to be honest. No regrets. I learned so much. I'm humbled by it. And I actually helped teach a class at HBS, Harvard Business School, and at Oxford about the experience from, basically it's like having a rocket ship and then falling, back into Earth, and horrible experience. But it's an experience that motivates me for what I do now. I'd say that, I am very, very motivated about building products that people love to use, and I'm very, very motivated about showing people that we can build great businesses.
So how did your interest in blockchain start to develop? Like what drew you to want to build in the blockchain space?
Yeah. So in 2016, I really wanted to build something that was like a new social network that would shift the economic model from the platforms to the kind of the creators and their fans. That was like 2016. And like that was like the kind of that laser vision. That's what I wanted to do. I put all my own money into starting this company, Peepo, like literally like several $1 million. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build this. I'm really going to go for this. And got my team back together that helped me build all the technology at Fab. And what we realized very quickly is, well, the best way to do this would be to do this on a blockchain. The best way to do this is like on a decentralized kind of network that would kind of really have kind of, it's like if we're saying we're going to disintermediate the platforms, we couldn't become another platform ourselves, and we couldn't be like the middleman for everybody. So we had to create something that could scale on a person-to-person basis and kind of peer-to-peer basis. And I just very quickly became enamored with Ethereum. In 2016, I was like Ethereum. I was started attending Ethereum meetups in Berlin, where I was living at the time, Germany. Got involved in kind of the whole scene there, and then just started thinking, okay, what is the technology we need to put in place in order to create something that's sort of social network? And this is a great example of right idea, right founder product fit, and definitely something the world needs, but it was just way too soon. So it was the wrong time. And so we ended up building a lot of technology, kind of infrastructure technology in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, instead of building the social network we wanted to build, because it was like back then there was like wallet technology was awful, right? There was no layer 2 blockchains, and there's no way, like, you're not going to pay an Ethereum gas fee for every kind of time someone does a like or kind of a retweet or what we call recast on Farcaster. Like, that would not scale either. So you need to first have like layer 2 technology, which didn't exist then. So we actually start building a layer 2 blockchain before Face or anything else kind of existed at the time. And yeah, so it's just, we ended up building a lot of infrastructure, and we built the first kind of, we called it crypto TikTok. We basically launched this app called Peepo at DevCon, which is like the Ethereum annual conference in 2019. We were heralded as like having amazing UX. We had one of the first smart contract wallets embedded in an app in the Apple App Store. You could basically, while you're watching someone's video, you could tap the like button to send them tokens. So instead of just liking, it was likes with value. And people loved it, but we also knew it was just too soon for that too. Like, it was just like, just way too early. And then we had a bunch of kind of prototypes that were lined up to be launched, or kind of pilots that were lined up to be launched on our technology, that were all about in-person events. So there was like a brew pub called Brewdog, and it was basically 5,000 retail locations around the world. And there was Microsoft wanted to pilot some of our technology for some of their in-person events around the world. And in 2020, we were going into 2020, like March, April 2020, ready to launch these pilots for all this in-person kind of location-based kind of like social kind of stuff. And then COVID hit. And so we literally had to scrap all those plans, and we just kind of regrouped. And yeah, and then we started Airstack a little while later.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to build on Base. Like, why specifically Base?
Base is just, we are 100% committed to Farcaster, and the Farcaster ecosystem is very bullish on Base. The Coinbase team, Jesse and everyone there have been phenomenal at kind of really supporting devs and kind of getting involved in the ecosystem. I think they won us and won others over by kind of what I said at the beginning in terms of like taking community as a full-time job and nurturing the community. And Base, I think, is the best technology right now for building kind of highly scalable blockchain applications that you don't need to think about the technology, or maybe not overthink about the technology.
Yeah, I guess this the easiest experience to build on that can scale.
Yeah,
which is super important. Yeah. So how does like the Moxy currency like overall work? Like, what makes it unique?
Yeah. So with Moxy, Moxy is a token, ERC20 token on the Base blockchain. We started off with 10 billion tokens that were launched back at the end of July. And the whole purpose of the Moxy protocol is what we call fan tokens. And so what this is you take Moxy, you lock them into the Moxy protocol in order to create fan tokens. Kind of, it's like you put this in and the out comes fan tokens on the other side. And so every fan token that's created is backed by Moxy. And what we created is that anyone on Farcaster can issue a fan token for themselves or for their community. And when you issue these fan tokens, people can buy them. Gets bought from a smart contract, not person to person. And owning a fan token provides a couple things. One is it provides you with access to special features. So there's over 110 different developer teams who build all sorts of things that you can get from being a fan, right? And so it could be access to certain live streams or videos or content or chats, or it could be like things such as if you want to be part of this community, you have to have our fan tokens. You have to be like an owner of the community, which is the latest thing we launched last week. Now we have even like on-chain advertising using Moxy fan tokens. So you can advertise something on Farcaster using your Moxy, and the payment for that ad 100% goes to the channel that was allowing you to advertise in it. So goes to all their fans. And so we created this structure around fan tokens, and Moxy is the protocol and the vehicle for it. And it's actually been fantastic. We have like over it's almost 10 million fan tokens have been purchased in the last 2 months. We grew by over 120% on all the core metrics of the protocol in September. We never thought we would get off this fast, and now we're just like, okay, let's the next thing, keep it going. Yeah.
Hmm. Jason, what do you think now will take to make what you're building, and then also just the space in general, more mainstream? Because like blockchain just hasn't fully hit there yet, but everybody
Yeah.
knows about it.
I think we're doing it. To be honest, it's like people always said to me like, what we need to do to get Farcaster to grow? And Farcaster is like, I think it's an amazing on-chain social network, and I really feel like everyone should be using it instead of Twitter because it's technology that anyone can develop applications into to kind of extend, which is like what blockchain, the promise of, is all about. Whereas Twitter is like Elon owns Twitter, and you can't use any of it. Like literally, you can use it as a consumer, but you can't build your own kind of version of Twitter or wrapper on it or apps into it. Whereas at Farcaster, there's literally like thousands of developers who are building stuff. And when we launched Moxy, we said, let's do that as well. Let's launch it as a protocol so anyone can build Moxy applications from day one, which has served us really well. And so when people have said to me before Moxy, like, what will it take to get more people to adopt Farcaster? What I always said was, when people hear that people are earning money on Farcaster, when creators who've been working really hard and making like nothing or very little for their time, say, hey, I just found out like I can make $500 a week or $1,000 a week or $2,000 a week by creating content on Farcaster, or as a builder, I can make a couple $1,000s a week because people are using my apps. They will come, and that's the whole purpose of Moxy, is to be like this financial layer of Farcaster. And I'll tell you, we're doing it. Like in the first 60 days of Moxy, over $2 million worth of creator rewards have been earned, and that's just the start. Like we're just getting started with it.
Mm-hmm. And you think that
like on Twitter now, people are posting left and right. I earned $1,000 this week on Farcaster thanks to Moxy, and that's exactly what we're going for.
So like the monetization aspect, you think is one of the best ways to attract people to it? Because in general, if you're using social media and you're creating content, you may not be earning.
I think so, and the reason why I think so, look, it's not going to be the only reason, but the reason I think it's a huge reason is because in order for social networks to grow, you need to get content creators over. And I don't think like just being decentralized or being on chain is enough. No one cares, right? It's like being decentralized, being on chain is kind of an enabler of things like earning money because you and your fans are supporting each other through things like Moxy. And so it's like the what, it's like the how, not the what. And so we're providing the what to it. And I think it's an important distinction, and I think it's a very important part of it.
So Jason, just the last question I have, like, what is your kind of big picture vision at this point? Like, where do you see what you're building currently going? Where do you see yourself going? What's like, let's say, your short-term goals and your long-term goals over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, we like to say that we have a very long-term plan to be the economic layer of Farcaster and of on-chain social finance overall. And we are big believers in Farcaster as a winner in this space, and we're being the economic engine to that. And the way that we operate is we have a very long-term vision of like where we want to be, and then we do little things every day to guide us towards that vision. And every week it's work with the community and kind of iterate, learn, and I think that like these days things move so fast that you got to be careful about saying, well, here's exactly what our vision is for 5 years from now. It's more like we have a goal that we're trying to achieve, and we're iterating every day with the community to get us there.
I think it's definitely a good approach. Well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think you've always been pretty innovative. Whether it's e-commerce, it's blockchain, you're always trying to do something different. So I'm excited to see what you're doing now and the progress of that and the scaling of it. And I wish you much success. Thanks for coming on.
Cool, Ben. Thank you.